The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the Minneapolis lakes. I sat on a bench overlooking the water, my mind racing with thoughts of bills and empty job applications. The cool breeze rustled the leaves above me, but I felt no comfort in nature's beauty. I had lost my job 3 months ago, and each day that passed without a new opportunity deepened my anxiety. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the rejection emails again. They piled up like fallen leaves, each one a reminder of my dwindling prospects. "Thank you for your application," they all began, followed by variations of "We regret to inform you." My heart sank further as I realized how close I was to missing rent. The urgency of my situation pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. I glanced at the calendar on my phone. Rent was due in less than a week. My savings account had become alarmingly low, and the thought of asking for help filled me with dread. I prided myself on being independent, yet here I was, staring into an abyss of desperation. The familiar sound of footsteps interrupted my thoughts. It was Tom, my landlord. He approached with his usual easy smile, but today it felt like a mask over something more serious. "Hey there." "Enjoying the sunshine?" he asked, taking a seat beside me. "Just trying to clear my head," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "I get it," he said, glancing at the water before turning back to me. "Things can get overwhelming." His tone shifted slightly as he leaned in closer. "If you're having trouble with rent this month, we can work something out." My stomach twisted at his words. The offer hung in the air between us like an unspoken agreement, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. But accepting help from Tom felt like crossing an invisible line that divided need from pride. "I'll be fine," I said too quickly, shaking off his concern as if it were an annoying fly buzzing around my head. Tom studied me for a moment before nodding slowly. "All right then. Just know that I'm here if you need anything." His voice was steady but carried an undertone that hinted at something more than just landlord-tenant relations. As he walked away, I felt an unsettling mix of relief and anxiety wash over me. The truth was that I needed help, more than just financial assistance. I needed stability in every sense of the word. Later that evening, I found myself sitting in a local coffee shop on Lyndale Avenue, nursing a lukewarm cup of black coffee while watching people go about their lives outside. The aroma of freshly baked pastries wafted through the air, but even their sweetness couldn't lift my spirits. A couple sat at the table next to mine, laughing and sharing stories about their day as if life were easy for them. My heart sank further at their joy. I wanted that feeling again too, lightness instead of this constant weight pressing down on me. I pulled out another job listing from my bag and scanned it half-heartedly when suddenly my phone buzzed with a text from Mark, a friend who had offered support during this difficult time but hadn't been particularly helpful lately. "Hey. You okay? Want to grab dinner?" His concern seemed genuine enough. We used to share meals regularly before everything fell apart for me. But tonight wasn't about catching up or pretending things were fine. It was about survival. "Thanks for checking in," I typed back slowly, "but not tonight." I hit send and placed the phone back down on the table as if it were burning hot, too much pressure to engage when all I wanted was solitude wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. Days turned into nights filled with restless sleep and anxious thoughts spiraling out of control until one evening when Tom knocked on my door unexpectedly after hours, a rare occurrence for him. "Can we talk?" he asked softly when I opened up to him. I nodded hesitantly and stepped aside to let him in. His presence filled the small living room immediately with warmth that made me uneasy yet strangely comforted all at once. "I've noticed you've been stressed lately," he began without preamble as he settled onto my worn couch, a piece inherited from college days long gone by now, but his eyes held sincerity rather than judgment. "It's just work stuff," I replied defensively even though deep down inside myself lay layers of turmoil far beyond employment issues alone. Tom's gaze softened as he leaned forward slightly, the space between us charged with unspoken tension. If there's anything else going on, you can talk to me. The invitation lingered heavily between us like an unvoiced question begging for answers neither one dared utter aloud. What would happen if we crossed those boundaries? I appreciate it, I managed finally after several moments stretched thin between us but knew full well how precarious our situation truly was, the stakes rising higher than ever before while time slipped through our fingers like grains of sand falling from an hourglass nearing its end. He offered solutions without pressure, payment extensions or flexible arrangements, but beneath those words lay something deeper waiting patiently just below surface level, an alternative path both tempting yet fraught with complications ahead should either party choose such avenues leading into unknown territory altogether. In that moment standing frozen amidst uncertainty while weighing pride against desperation became palpable, it struck harder than any rejection letter received thus far. An internal tug-of-war playing out silently within myself where decisions loomed larger than life itself. The weight of my decision sat heavily on my shoulders as I navigated through the following days. Each morning, I woke up to the same grim reality, bills piling up, job applications going unanswered, and an ever-looming deadline for rent. My landlord's kind words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the delicate balance I was trying to maintain. I met with my friend Sarah at our usual coffee shop, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the chatter of customers. The cafe was a refuge from my spiraling thoughts. As we sipped our drinks, I tried to mask my anxiety with forced laughter. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "You seem distracted." "Just thinking about work," I replied, avoiding her gaze. "Still waiting for responses." She nodded but didn't press further. Instead, she shared her own struggles with freelance gigs and how unpredictable they could be. Her words were a comfort yet also a reminder of how precarious our lives had become. Later that day, while walking through the art district, I found myself drawn to a vibrant mural depicting a woman breaking free from chains. It resonated deeply within me. The artist had captured the essence of struggle and liberation in bold strokes that seemed to pulse with life. As I stood there, I felt an urge to embrace that freedom for myself but was tethered by my circumstances. That evening, after returning home, I received a text from my landlord. "Can we talk? I have some ideas." My heart raced at his message. It carried an air of urgency that made me uneasy yet curious. I hesitated before replying, unsure if I wanted to open that door again. But desperation won out over pride as I typed back, "Sure." We arranged to meet at his office the next day. Walking there felt like crossing a tightrope suspended over an abyss. One misstep could send everything crashing down. When I arrived, he greeted me with a warm smile that momentarily eased my tension. We settled into his office chairs, his cluttered desk filled with paperwork and art supplies creating an intimate atmosphere. "I've been thinking about your situation," he began carefully. "I know it's tough out there." His eyes held genuine concern mixed with something else, an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "I appreciate your understanding," I said cautiously. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "There are alternative ways we can handle this, if you're open to discussing them." My heart raced again, the implication hung in the air between us like a thick fog obscuring clarity. "What do you mean?" He hesitated for just a moment before continuing. "I'm saying we could come up with something more flexible, something mutually beneficial." The words hung heavily between us, they were laced with unspoken promises and potential pitfalls. My pride screamed against such an arrangement while another part of me whispered about survival and need. "What do you have in mind?" My voice came out steadier than I felt inside. His expression shifted slightly as he laid out options, work around the property in exchange for rent reduction or even temporary arrangements that blurred lines further than mere tenant-landlord relations. As he spoke, memories flooded back, the laughter shared during casual conversations about art and life, the connection that had grown between us without either acknowledging it fully until now. We could help each other, he concluded softly. My heart pounded in response, a mix of fear and intrigue swirling within me like storm clouds gathering overhead. Just then, he reached across the desk and touched my hand lightly, a gesture meant to convey sincerity but igniting something deeper within me instead. Against all logic and reason, desire flickered into existence, a spark ignited by vulnerability and desperation colliding head-on. We kissed, lingered in my mind unbidden as our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity before reality crashed back around us like waves against rocks on a turbulent shore. I pulled away abruptly, shame washed over me like cold water dousing flames of longing before they could burn too brightly. I need time to think, was all I managed to stammer before standing up hastily and exiting his office without looking back, my heart racing both from exhilaration and fear at what had just transpired between us. Over the next few days, uncertainty gnawed at me relentlessly as job applications continued their disheartening trend of silence while thoughts of him invaded every waking moment. I couldn't escape it even when trying desperately to distract myself by visiting friends or immersing myself in art galleries around town where colors danced vibrantly yet felt muted against my inner turmoil. One evening while sitting alone at home surrounded by silence louder than any bustling crowd outside my window, I picked up my phone again scrolling through social media aimlessly until something caught my eye. An old colleague had posted about job openings in her company, positions requiring experience just like mine. Hope flickered anew within me alongside guilt for even considering straying from what felt safe despite its complications. The thought of reaching out made me hesitate because doing so would mean confronting everything once again, both him and myself. But as days turned into weeks without change, the weight pressed down harder, pushing against every ounce of dignity still clinging desperately within. I knew it was time to make decisions regardless of consequences looming ahead, uncertain yet inevitable. The following week brought another meeting scheduled with him, this time under different circumstances. I needed clarity amidst chaos surrounding everything, spiraling outwards, leaving no room left untouched by doubt or hesitation anymore. As soon as we sat down together once more, I noticed subtle shifts in energy between us, tension crackling beneath surface-level glances exchanged where words unsaid lingered heavily just beyond reach, waiting patiently until someone dared break silence first. "Have you thought more about our last conversation?" he asked, carefully breaking through thick air hanging uncomfortably overhead, separating us both physically yet emotionally intertwined somehow deeper than either acknowledged openly still. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever lay ahead, knowing fully well choices made today would echo far into tomorrow, shaping what remained possible afterwards. The silence between us hung heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could sense his expectation, a quiet urgency that made my heart race. "Have you thought more about our last conversation?" he asked, his voice breaking through the tension. I nodded slowly, unsure of how to articulate the turmoil inside me. My mind raced back to our previous encounters, the moments we shared that blurred the lines of professionalism and intimacy. I had entered this relationship seeking solace from my struggles, but now it felt like a precarious tightrope walk between desperation and desire. "I've been thinking," I finally replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But things are complicated." "Complicated how?" he pressed gently. His eyes searched mine for clarity, yet all I could muster was confusion. The weight of my circumstances pressed down on me like a thick fog, obscuring any clear path forward. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts amidst the chaos swirling in my head. Unemployment loomed over me like a dark cloud, threatening to rain down despair at any moment. My pride battled fiercely with my need for stability. I was caught in a tumultuous storm of emotions. "I just don't want to lose what we have," I admitted finally. "I can't afford to lose anything right now." He sighed, leaning back in his chair as if the weight of my words had physically affected him. "You're not going to lose me," he assured softly. But even as he said it, doubt crept into my mind like an unwelcome guest. Days passed in an uncomfortable haze. My partner had become increasingly distant, his support dwindling just when I needed it most. Conversations turned into brief exchanges filled with tension and unspoken frustrations. The more he withdrew, the more I sought refuge in thoughts of my landlord. One afternoon at the local coffee shop, I glanced out the window as raindrops began to streak down the glass like tears cascading down a cheek. The familiar sound of espresso machines whirring and patrons chatting faded into background noise as my thoughts spiraled deeper into uncertainty. Then came an unexpected message from my landlord, "Let's talk soon." My stomach twisted at the implications of those words. They felt both inviting and terrifying. Later that evening, we met at his apartment, an intimate space filled with vibrant art pieces that reflected his personality. As we settled into conversation over cups of tea, I struggled to keep my emotions in check. "I've been thinking about your situation," he began cautiously. "If you need help." I cut him off before he could finish. "I can't accept charity," I insisted firmly despite the ache in my chest that begged for relief. "It's not charity if it's mutual," he countered softly but firmly. "We both know there's something here beyond just business." Our eyes locked for an intense moment, heat coursed through me as unacknowledged feelings bubbled up from deep within. The air crackled with tension as if we were both teetering on the edge of something significant. And then it happened, our lips met in a hesitant kiss that ignited something dormant inside me, a flicker of hope intertwined with fear and longing. I pulled away abruptly, startled by what had just transpired between us. "This isn't right," I stammered as shame washed over me like cold water. "Why not?" he asked quietly, his gaze steady yet searching. "Because everything is wrong right now. My job situation, my partner." My voice trailed off as frustration bubbled beneath the surface once more. He reached across the table and took my hand gently. Warmth radiated from his touch despite the chill creeping into my bones from worry and doubt. "Maybe this is what you need, a chance to breathe without all those pressures weighing you down," he suggested softly. As much as I wanted to believe him, fear gripped me tightly like a vice around my heart. What would happen if word got out? What would happen if this relationship spiraled beyond control? The next few days became a whirlwind of emotions. Each moment spent with him drew me closer while simultaneously pushing me further away from reality. It was intoxicating yet terrifying. Every encounter felt like walking on thin ice over an abyss of uncertainty. Amidst this emotional turmoil came an unexpected job offer, a glimmer of hope shining through dark clouds threatening to engulf me entirely. A small company specializing in creative solutions reached out after seeing my resume online. They wanted to set up an interview next week. Excitement surged within me at this prospect. Could this be what I needed? A chance at stability without compromising myself? Yet even as joy blossomed within, doubts loomed large. Would accepting help from him jeopardize everything? As days passed leading up to that interview date, every interaction with my landlord became charged with unspoken tension. The lines blurred further each time our paths crossed until clarity felt impossible amidst swirling emotions clouding judgment entirely. Finally came decision day. The moment arrived where choices made would shape everything ahead forevermore. Standing before him once again later that week felt surreal. I could see concern etched across his features as we spoke about work and life outside these walls filled with complexities beyond comprehension sometimes. "I want you to succeed," he said earnestly, looking straight into my eyes, searchingly seeking something buried within them perhaps. But all I could think about was how much was riding on this interview, not just for financial reasons but also for reclaiming some semblance of dignity lost along this winding path fraught with challenges faced alone until now. Yet still lingering questions haunted. What did success mean anymore? Would pursuing this job mean severing ties formed unexpectedly? What if it meant losing both opportunity and connection? As uncertainty swirled around us like autumn leaves caught in gusts overhead outside, the choice lay heavy upon shoulders burdened already by too many conflicting desires battling fiercely against each other. And so there we stood together, poised precariously between two worlds, one offering stability while another beckoned passionately towards unknown possibilities waiting just beyond reach. The evening air in Minneapolis was crisp, a stark contrast to the warmth of the moment we shared. I could still feel the weight of his presence beside me, a steady anchor amidst my swirling thoughts. We had crossed a line, and now it felt as though we were standing at the edge of an abyss, peering into the unknown depths below. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, breaking the silence that hung between us like a fragile thread. His voice was laced with concern, but I could sense an undercurrent of something deeper, an invitation to explore what lay ahead. I nodded slowly, my mind racing with conflicting emotions. The night had unfolded in ways I hadn't anticipated. We had spent hours talking, sharing stories that revealed more than just our surface selves. Laughter echoed in the dim light of his living room, and for a brief moment, I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long. Yet beneath that laughter lingered an unspoken tension. The reality of my situation loomed large. My unpaid rent weighed heavily on my conscience, and I was acutely aware that I hadn't voiced my need for help. Asking him directly felt like stepping into quicksand. One misstep could pull me under. It's been a long time since I've felt this way," he continued, his gaze steady on mine. "I don't want to complicate things between us." Complicate? The very nature of our relationship was already tangled in complexities. My heart raced as I considered how to respond. "You've been so kind," I managed to say, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. He shifted slightly closer, the warmth radiating from him both comforting and disconcerting. "You deserve kindness," he replied earnestly. "But what about your job situation? Have you thought more about it?" His question hung in the air like a challenge. Could I be honest without risking everything? The thought of confessing my financial struggles felt like baring my soul, a vulnerability I wasn't sure I could afford. "I'm trying," I said finally, searching for words that wouldn't betray me completely. "But it's hard right now." "Hard how?" He leaned forward slightly, his interest genuine yet probing. I hesitated again, weighing my options carefully. "I've been applying everywhere," I said cautiously. "But no luck yet." He nodded thoughtfully but didn't press further. Instead, he reached out and took my hand gently in his, a gesture filled with warmth that sent shivers up my spine. It was both comforting and terrifying. It reminded me how easily boundaries could blur. The night wore on as we shared stories about our lives, his work as a landlord and mine as an artist struggling to find her footing again amidst rejection letters and dwindling savings. Yet every laugh we shared felt tinged with an underlying tension. Our connection deepened even as uncertainty loomed large over us. Eventually, exhaustion began to settle in like a heavy fog over the city outside his window. He stood up and stretched slightly before looking back at me with an intensity that sent butterflies fluttering wildly within me. "Would you like to stay?" he asked quietly, almost hesitantly. I knew what he meant. Part of me longed to say yes without reservation, to lose myself in this moment of connection without worrying about tomorrow's worries or unpaid bills looming overhead. But another part whispered caution into my ear, the voice reminding me of pride and dignity that seemed so fragile now amidst these swirling emotions. "I shouldn't," I replied softly despite every fiber of my being wanting to yield to temptation. "Just tonight," he urged gently. "We can talk more, or not talk at all." The invitation hung tantalizingly before me, a chance for refuge from the chaos outside those four walls where life continued its relentless march forward without pause or mercy for those left behind. After what felt like hours spent weighing the decision against all odds stacked against me, the fear of losing control battling against an overwhelming desire for comfort, I finally nodded slowly. "Yes, just tonight." As we settled into his space together, wrapped in blankets under soft lighting, I surrendered myself fully to this unexpected connection born out of desperation and longing for something more than mere survival. In those quiet moments together, our breaths mingling softly, I began to let go of some burdens weighing heavily on my heart. Perhaps there was solace here amidst uncertainty after all. Yet even as sleep began to beckon softly at the edges of consciousness, my mind flickered back once more toward reality waiting beyond these walls, the rent due date creeping ever closer while dreams danced tantalizingly just out of reach. Morning light filtered through the curtains when I awoke next, an unfamiliar warmth beside me stirring memories from last night flooding back with clarity sharper than any blade, laughter shared over stories exchanged, quiet confessions whispered beneath covers intermingled with fears laid bare. And then there was him, his eyes still closed peacefully while breathing steadily beside me, a sight both comforting yet fraught with implications unspoken lingering heavily between us now. What would happen next? Would this moment lead us down paths neither anticipated? Or would it unravel everything we'd built so far? As if sensing my thoughts drifting toward darker corners, he stirred awake suddenly meeting my gaze directly, a hint of vulnerability reflected within those depths revealing something profound lingering beneath surface appearances. "What are you thinking?" he murmured sleepily while brushing hair away from my face tenderly, a simple gesture filled with intimacy stirring emotions within too complex for easy articulation. Words failed me momentarily as reality crashed down once more around us both, the weighty choice looming ever larger upon shoulders already burdened by societal expectations mixed with personal desires battling fiercely within hearts yearning desperately for connection amid chaos surrounding them daily. "Let's talk about it later," he suggested quietly after moments passed filled only by silence stretching between us like taut strings ready to snap at any moment if touched wrongfully. Reluctantly nodding agreement, I couldn't shake off unease settling deep within gut reminding me how precarious this situation truly remained despite tenderness shared last night transforming everything else into mere background noise fading away gradually until only we remained suspended, together here now facing unknown futures waiting patiently beyond horizon line drawn sharp against sky above. And then came that familiar dread creeping back slowly filling spaces left empty by fleeting joy experienced fleetingly before. It whispered reminders unbidden urging caution while simultaneously igniting flames deep inside yearning desperately for something more lasting than temporary reprieve offered only by fleeting moments spent together wrapped tightly beneath covers shielding us from harshness outside world waiting beyond doorframe beckoning ever closer threatening stability built upon fragile foundations barely holding steady under pressure mounting steadily day by day. The weight of truth pressed down on me, heavy and unyielding. I lay awake in the early hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. The comfort I had found in my landlord's arms felt increasingly like a fragile illusion, one that could shatter at any moment. Guilt twisted in my stomach, reminding me of the choices I had made, choices that felt like betrayals against my own values. I needed to confront my emotions and assess where this relationship was headed. As dawn broke, casting soft light across the room, I pushed myself out of bed. The quiet of the early morning was deceptive, it promised peace but delivered only uncertainty. I brewed coffee and stared out the window at the Minneapolis skyline. The city pulsed with life, yet I felt disconnected from it all. My thoughts drifted to my landlord, Tom, and our last encounter. There had been warmth between us, yes, but also a nagging doubt that lingered like an unwelcome guest. As I sipped my coffee, I recalled overhearing snippets of conversation from Tom when he thought no one was listening. He often spoke about his struggles with maintaining the property and managing his own finances. It struck me then, he wasn't just a landlord, he was navigating his own difficulties. Perhaps we were both trapped in this cycle of need and desperation, trying to find solace in each other while battling our own demons. I decided to take a walk around the lakes, my usual refuge when life felt overwhelming. The crisp air filled my lungs as I strolled along the water's edge, watching ducks glide gracefully across the surface. Nature had a way of soothing my restless mind, reminding me that beauty existed even amid chaos. But today, tranquility eluded me. My thoughts spiraled back to Tom and our relationship, a tangled web woven from necessity and desire. What if he saw me as nothing more than a means to an end? A temporary fix for his loneliness? The idea stung more than I cared to admit. I stopped by a local coffee shop on my way back home, hoping for clarity among familiar faces and comforting aromas. As I settled into a corner table with a steaming cup before me, I spotted an old acquaintance from my previous job, a woman named Linda. She approached with her usual bright smile. "Hey. It's been ages. How are you?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with genuine interest. "Just trying to get by," I replied with a half-hearted smile. "Same here," she said lightly, but her tone shifted as she leaned closer. "I heard about your situation. If you need anything, job leads or support, I'm here." Her offer struck a chord within me. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "Thanks," I said cautiously, unsure if accepting help would mean admitting defeat. We chatted for a while longer before parting ways. As I walked home, Linda's words echoed in my mind. Support was available if only I could let go of my pride long enough to accept it. Back at home, however, the emotional turmoil resurfaced like an unwelcome tide washing over me again. My phone buzzed with messages from Tom, simple check-ins that stirred conflicting feelings within me. Each ping reminded me of our connection but also of the precariousness surrounding it. That evening found us together again, this time seated on his porch under twinkling fairy lights strung overhead like stars captured just for us. He spoke animatedly about plans for renovations on the property, a topic that seemed mundane but revealed so much about him. His desire for stability mirrored mine. "Sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart," he admitted quietly after a moment's pause. I nodded slowly, his vulnerability resonated deeply within me. "I get that," I replied softly, searching for words that could bridge our shared struggles without crossing boundaries we had yet to define. As we talked late into the night under those twinkling lights, the world outside fading away, I caught glimpses of what might be possible between us if only we dared to tread further into uncharted territory together. But guilt loomed large over every shared laugh and lingering glance, reminders that despite our connection, reality awaited us both outside this bubble we had created together. The next day brought unexpected news. An opportunity arose, a job opening at an art gallery downtown where I'd once thrived creatively before life took its unexpected turns away from stability toward uncertainty instead. Excitement bubbled within me as hope ignited anew, but so did fear. Fear that pursuing this path would mean stepping away from Tom entirely or worse yet risking losing him altogether if things didn't work out as planned once more. That afternoon found me pacing nervously around my living room contemplating whether to share this news with him or keep it close until something more solid materialized beneath my feet first before taking any further steps forward into unknown territory, a head waiting patiently beyond horizon line drawn sharp against sky above. Moments later though, just as doubts threatened once again, I received another message from Tom inviting me over for dinner tonight at his place instead. The invitation hung heavy in the air between us like unspoken words lingering just out of reach waiting desperately for courage enough summon them forth finally breaking silence holding us captive still. As twilight descended upon Minneapolis painting everything in shades of orange and purple hues, the city transformed into something magical yet uncertain too, I made up my mind. Tonight would be pivotal, tonight would determine everything moving forward. And then came that familiar dread creeping back slowly filling spaces left empty by fleeting joy experienced fleetingly before. It whispered reminders unbidden urging caution while simultaneously igniting flames deep inside yearning desperately for something more lasting than temporary reprieve offered only by fleeting moments spent together wrapped tightly beneath covers shielding us from harshness outside world waiting beyond doorframe beckoning ever closer threatening stability built upon fragile foundations barely holding steady under pressure mounting steadily day by day. With each passing hour leading up toward dinner, the weight pressing down heavier still, I couldn't escape feeling caught between two worlds, one filled with hope yet fraught with uncertainty while another beckoned closer promising familiarity tinged bittersweet now laced through choices made previously leading nowhere good ultimately leading straight toward inevitable reckoning looming ever larger ahead. The clock ticked relentlessly, each second echoing the weight of my choices. I sat at the small table in my kitchen, staring at the half-eaten meal in front of me. The remnants of dinner seemed to reflect my own state, scattered and incomplete. I had convinced myself that taking a step toward stability meant navigating a path I never thought I would tread. My landlord's offer lingered in my mind, a tempting yet unsettling prospect. That evening, I received a message from an old colleague. She had heard about my situation and wanted to meet for coffee. Part of me felt grateful for the outreach, another part feared what it might mean. Would she offer me a lifeline, or would it simply serve as another reminder of how far I had fallen? I hesitated before replying, caught between hope and the nagging fear of further disappointment. "Let's meet tomorrow at the coffee shop by the lake," I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the screen. The Lakeside Cafe was one of my favorite spots, a place where vibrant colors danced across murals and life felt just a bit more hopeful. As night settled in, thoughts of my landlord crept back into focus. He was more than just a figure demanding rent, he had become a source of comfort and confusion. Our conversations often drifted into personal territory, revealing glimpses of his own struggles beneath his composed exterior. It was easy to forget that he too bore burdens, hidden behind a mask of authority. I wrapped myself in a blanket and sank deeper into the couch, contemplating what his offer might entail if I chose to accept it. The idea made me uneasy. Was I truly prepared to blur those lines further? My heart raced at the thought of going down that road again, yet desperation clawed at me like an unrelenting beast. Morning arrived with muted sunlight filtering through my curtains. It felt like a new beginning, or perhaps just another day filled with uncertainty. After hastily preparing for our meeting, I stepped outside, greeted by the crisp air that held whispers of autumn. The coffee shop buzzed with life as I entered, the rich aroma wrapping around me like an embrace. My colleague was already seated at our usual spot by the window. She looked up with concern etched across her face as soon as she spotted me. "Hey. Thanks for meeting," she said warmly but with an undertone that suggested she knew more than she let on. "Of course," I replied, settling into the chair opposite her. "I appreciate you reaching out." We exchanged pleasantries before diving into heavier topics, the job market, survival strategies, and our shared experiences navigating these turbulent waters. As she spoke about potential leads and networking opportunities, something shifted within me, hope flickered like a candle fighting against wind. "I might have something for you," she said suddenly, leaning closer as if sharing a secret. My heart quickened again. Could this be it? A chance to reclaim some semblance of stability? "What do you mean?" "There's an opening at my company," she explained carefully. "It's not much right now but could lead somewhere." Excitement bubbled up inside me momentarily until reality crashed back down. Would they even consider someone like me? "I haven't worked in months," I replied cautiously. "You've got experience," she insisted gently but firmly. "And you've got connections." As we continued to talk about logistics and potential interviews, doubts began to creep back and like shadows filling corners too dark to see clearly. What if this opportunity slipped through my fingers too? After our meeting wrapped up with promises to send over details later that day, I found myself wandering toward the lakeside park nearby, a favorite haunt where nature offered solace amidst chaos. The water shimmered under the sun's gaze, its beauty almost mocked my inner turmoil. Sitting on a bench overlooking the lake gave me time to reflect on everything swirling inside me, the job opportunity looming ahead and my complicated feelings for my landlord tugging insistently at my heartstrings. Would pursuing one mean sacrificing something precious about myself? My phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was him, my landlord, asking if we could talk later that evening about rent options again. A mix of dread and anticipation filled me as I read his message repeatedly before finally responding with an affirmative nod toward possibility. Sure. As dusk approached later that day, nerves twisted in knots within me while preparing for our meeting. Would he bring up his earlier proposal again? Or would he simply discuss payment plans? When he arrived at my apartment door later that evening, there was an intensity in his gaze, a mixture of understanding and unspoken tension hanging thickly between us like fog obscuring clarity. I wanted to check in, he began after entering without waiting for an invitation, a familiar warmth enveloping us both despite underlying apprehension filling every word spoken next. I appreciate that, I managed to say while shifting nervously under his scrutiny, wondering how much truth lay hidden beneath our exchanges thus far. He paused before continuing thoughtfully, I know things are tough right now. If you need help beyond what we discussed before. His voice trailed off suggestively but left enough unsaid hanging heavily in air around us. A precarious balance teetering on edge between neediness masked by pride versus genuine connection formed through shared struggles faced together along this uncertain journey forward. I'm trying to find work, I reminded him softly but firmly, determination fueling every syllable spoken aloud even though doubt lingered just beneath surface tension present throughout conversation unfolding slowly before us both now. I can help you. His words were direct yet layered with meaning beyond mere assistance offered casually between friends turned confidants navigating uncharted territory together amidst their respective challenges facing each day anew. A part of me wondered if accepting his offer would mean crossing lines irrevocably drawn long ago. Lines intended solely meant protect dignity remaining intact despite circumstances beyond control forcing choices made previously leading nowhere good ultimately leading straight toward inevitable reckoning looming ever larger ahead. Let's take things one step at a time, he said finally breaking silence lingering heavily between us both now. But uncertainty still hung palpably within air surrounding us both reminding neither could escape consequences bound tightly together through choices made thus far leading them closer toward inevitable conclusion awaiting them both just beyond horizon looming ever nearer. The air between us thickened, laden with unspoken words. I could sense the weight of the decision ahead pressing down on me. My heart raced as I contemplated what accepting his offer would mean, not just for us, but for my sense of self. The shadows of my past choices loomed large, and the thought of losing both my landlord and my dignity felt like a noose tightening around my neck. Maybe we need to talk about what this really means, I finally managed to say, breaking the silence that had settled like dust in the corners of the room. He nodded slowly, his brow furrowing in thought. I don't want to complicate things further, he replied, his voice steady but tinged with an undercurrent of concern. But I also don't want to see you struggle. His willingness to help felt genuine, yet it also stirred a storm within me. I had fought so hard to maintain some semblance of control over my life. The idea of leaning on him for support was both comforting and terrifying. Would it lead me down a path I couldn't return from? I appreciate that, I said carefully, weighing each word as if they were fragile glass. But what happens when this is over? When the rent is paid and everything goes back to normal? Normal is a relative term, he replied, a hint of bitterness creeping into his tone. I've struggled too, you know. His admission caught me off guard. I had always viewed him as someone who had it all together, successful, confident, unflappable. But now, seeing this vulnerability sparked something within me. What do you mean? I pressed gently. He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair as if trying to erase the memories surfacing in his mind. I've been through my share of hardships. Losing my job last year hit harder than I expected. A flicker of empathy ignited within me as he spoke about his struggles, a shared humanity that bridged the gap between us. Perhaps we were not so different after all. Perhaps our lives had intersected at this moment for a reason. I didn't know, I murmured. Most people don't, he said quietly, looking away from me for a moment before meeting my gaze again with renewed intensity. But that's why I offered to help you. The complexity of our situation began to unravel in my mind like an intricate tapestry woven from threads of desperation and hope. Could we truly navigate this without losing ourselves completely? I have an opportunity, I said hesitantly, feeling the weight of honesty pressing down on me. A chance to leave town for a while, maybe even start fresh somewhere else. His expression shifted instantly from concern to curiosity. Where would you go? A friend reached out about a job opening in Denver, I explained slowly, gauging his reaction as carefully as one might examine delicate art on display in a gallery. Denver, he echoed softly. Yes. The word hung between us like an uninvited guest at a gathering where everyone pretended not to notice its presence. I can't blame you for wanting out, he said after a pause filled with tension and uncertainty. But are you sure leaving is the right choice? What if it is? The question slipped out before I could catch it. He leaned back slightly in his chair, crossing his arms defensively over his chest, a physical manifestation of the emotional barrier rising between us again. There's more at stake here than just rent payments or job offers, he replied cautiously. I nodded slowly, understanding that beneath our conversation lay deeper currents waiting to be explored, the tangled emotions we both harbored but hadn't dared articulate fully yet. Maybe we need some time apart, I suggested tentatively after another heavy silence settled around us like fog over Minneapolis lakes at dawn. Time apart? His voice held an edge now, a mixture of disappointment and confusion that made my stomach churn uneasily. Yes. The word tasted bitter on my tongue as it left my lips. Parting felt necessary but painful nonetheless. I don't want things to end like this. His words were softer now but carried an undeniable weight, the gravity of what lay ahead pressing upon us both heavily enough that neither could ignore it any longer. Neither do I. My heart raced at the admission. Admitting such vulnerability felt foreign yet liberating all at once, a step toward confronting whatever awaited beyond our current crossroads together or apart. As moments stretched into minutes filled with tension thick enough to cut through steel walls built around our hearts over time spent together navigating uncharted waters fraught with uncertainty, one undeniable truth began surfacing amidst all else swirling around us. Feelings lingered beneath every interaction shared thus far. Feelings neither could afford acknowledging openly without risking everything they'd built upon fragile foundations already beginning cracking under pressure mounting steadily each passing day since first crossing paths weeks ago now. Just then, there was a knock at the door, sharp and unexpected, interrupting our delicate dance around truths still hidden beneath layers cloaked behind prideful facades carefully constructed throughout years spent navigating life's complexities alone until now. He glanced toward the door before returning his gaze back onto mine. Uncertainty flickered across his features once more as realization dawned upon him. Whatever awaited beyond those closed doors held potential consequences neither could predict nor prepare adequately for right now. With one last lingering look exchanged filled with unspoken words hanging heavy between us both still even amid uncertainty looming ever larger overhead, I took a deep breath steeling myself against whatever fate awaited next beyond threshold dividing two worlds colliding headlong into one another inevitably leading nowhere good. The door creaked open, and I stepped into the hallway, my heart racing. Each footfall echoed against the walls, a reminder of the choice I had made just moments ago. The air felt heavier, charged with unspoken words. My landlord stood behind me, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. "Are you sure about this?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, though uncertainty lingered in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. "I need to move forward," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. This can't continue. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to lose what we have. What did we have? A complicated entanglement born from desperation and blurred lines. Yet beneath it all lay something genuine that neither of us could ignore. I turned to face him fully, searching for the right words that could encapsulate everything swirling in my mind. I appreciate your support, I began carefully, but I can't rely on it anymore. I need to find my own way. His eyes darkened with understanding and something else, perhaps regret. You don't have to do this alone. Maybe not, I countered gently, but I need to stand on my own 2 feet. A flicker of pain crossed his face before he masked it with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. If you change your mind. I won't, I interrupted firmly. The decision was made, there was no turning back now. As I stepped outside into the cool Minneapolis air, the vibrant colors of fall leaves reminded me of the beauty surrounding me, a beauty that felt distant yet enticing. The lakes shimmered under the afternoon sun as if calling out to me for solace. I walked toward my favorite coffee shop, each step easing the tension in my shoulders ever so slightly. The familiar scent of roasted beans welcomed me as soon as I entered. The barista greeted me with a warm smile, she knew my order by heart. Just a black coffee today, I said, feeling lighter already. Settling into a corner seat by the window, I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen blankly for a moment before scrolling through job listings once more. My heart sank at each rejection email still lodged in my inbox, reminders of my struggles from just weeks ago. But then something caught my eye, an opening for an art coordinator position in another city, an opportunity that felt like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. My pulse quickened as hope began to flicker within me. Could this be what I needed? A fresh start far from all these entanglements? My thoughts drifted back to him, the landlord who had been so much more than just someone collecting rent every month. He had been someone who saw me when others didn't, he had offered support when it felt like all was lost. Yet now, it seemed clear, stepping away from our dynamic was crucial for reclaiming myself and moving forward into uncharted territory. As if sensing my internal struggle, the barista approached again with curiosity etched on her face. You look deep in thought today. Just contemplating new beginnings, I replied with a half-smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. She nodded knowingly before returning behind the counter while I took another sip of coffee, savoring its warmth against my palms, a simple pleasure amidst uncertainty. The minutes ticked by as ideas swirled around in my head. How would applying for this position work? Would they even consider someone like me? But then again, what did it matter if I didn't try? With newfound determination fueling me, I opened up an application form on my phone and began typing furiously, my past experiences spilling onto the screen as hope intertwined with resolve. Suddenly, an incoming message illuminated my phone's display, an email notification from the job listing site confirming that applications were due soon. My heart raced at the thought of missing out on this chance if hesitation took hold again. After submitting everything just before closing time at the cafe, relief washed over me like cool water after a long drought. I had taken a step toward independence and self-discovery despite lingering doubts about leaving everything behind. As dusk settled over Minneapolis and streetlights flickered to life outside the window, shadows danced across familiar streets, the very streets where memories both painful and joyful intertwined seamlessly over time. Yet just as hope began knitting itself back together within me came another message, the one thing that could unravel everything, an email from him titled simply "We need to talk." My stomach dropped at those words. Anxiety clawed its way back into existence like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave even after being shown out multiple times before this moment arrived uninvited once more. With trembling fingers, I opened it. I understand your decision, but please know that what we shared meant something deeper than you realize. Can we meet? 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind as panic surged anew, Was this truly what was best? Could meeting him again jeopardize everything I'd worked so hard for? Time stood still as doubt crept back in. Perhaps leaving wasn't so straightforward after all. And then another ping sounded, a reply from the art coordinator position thanking me for applying while also inviting candidates for interviews next week. The juxtaposition struck hard. Here lay potential freedom alongside entangled emotions threatening to pull me back down into chaos once more. I closed my eyes tightly against conflicting feelings swelling within. Choices loomed ahead, yet clarity remained elusive amid swirling uncertainties surrounding love lost versus dreams pursued. In that moment suspended between two worlds, past connections still tugging at heartstrings while fresh opportunities beckoned enticingly, I knew one thing: whatever happened next would change everything irrevocably.